Hey, welcome to the next episode of the podcast. Glad you joined us. Make sure to subscribe and also leave comments. Each week we'll put up new shows. If you're a new subscriber, check out all the past episodes as well to catch up. But we look forward to continue talking and hope you enjoy what we're hearing at this point. Mandalorian's latest season, and more or less the latest episode, which aired on Friday. Chapter 10, I believe is what it's called for season 2, but really chapter 10 of all episodes, regardless of what season. Yeah. Pretty interesting one, because it was so taking a step back. In the first one, obviously, we finally got to see Boba Fett's armor, right? Something that they kind of hinted at in season 1. And then we finally get to see the armor being worn, not by Boba Fett, but by someone else. And instead, that kind of carries over towards the end of season or episode 1 or episode 9. Sorry, trying to get the numbers correct here based on the sequencing. Episode 9, you saw a man standing up on a cliff looking down as he passes by on his speeder bike, and he turns around, and it's none other than the actor who played the clone troopers, and Jango Fett, which means it's Boba Fett. Some have debated that, oh no, that's probably another clone trooper. No, sorry, I don't believe that. It's clearly Boba Fett.
Right. But yeah, I mean, why would they do that?
Yeah, I agree. Why would you hint that? You know he's taking the Boba Fett armor. Now the question is, do you think he knows whose armor that is?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I mean, he was brought into the Mandalorian. Remember, he was a child that was brought in. He was not actually raised. He was raised in their ways, but he was not an original Mandalorian. Yeah, so that's a very good question. I don't know if he knows the current history, because wouldn't he then, if that's the case, if he knew who he is, he kind of would know who Yoda is, or that the child would be?
No. Yoda is unknown.
But the thing is, if he was brought in as a child, yeah, he would know the history. I mean, just because he was born in it. I mean, if it was somebody that's revered like Boba Fett, he would know who that is. I would think.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, maybe he doesn't, because Boba Fett didn't really run with Jango Fett didn't run with any of the other Mandalorians when he built the clones, right? True. And then, or he helped basically.
He was isolated from other, right?
And so no one knew of Boba Fett. Now, if you watch series like Rebels, the animated series, you can see that Boba Fett does make appearances as a younger child and that whole thing. But he doesn't really hang out with Mandalorians either. He just hangs out with bounty hunters, hence why he becomes eventual bounty hunter, is on that. But yeah, I wouldn't think, he even still didn't even know anything about the Jedi really until, he was told that there was this race of wizards, in a sense, who they battled with and whatnot. And so he knows he thinks of the Jedi as basically those who hate the Mandalorian, which isn't necessarily true. So I don't think he knows anything about Yoda. Actually, nobody knows anything about Yoda because everybody thought Yoda was dead. Right. So, and actually no one even knows the race. Like, he doesn't know the race at all, because he's like, where do I take this guy? I don't know. You figure it out, find out. Maybe you can have someone tell you. But yeah, so I am curious, though. I don't think he knows anything about Boba Fett, or he knows the importance of it. He just believes that someone who's not Mandalorian should ever wear Mandalorian armor. So,
right,
I agree there.
Stolen valor type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
More so than that. Yeah.
So, what did you think of the latest episode, Mike? What was your thoughts on the latest one, where it's a continuation? He's now got the armor, and now he's transporting, basically trying to find more Mandalorians.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting because now he's going through different parts of the galaxy, right? Now he's going to be stumbling into different areas, right? And then it was interesting to see a part of the rebels, or supposedly of the rebel, and how they treated him. And because he was in a different sector. So it makes you wonder, like, okay, what section is he going to? Where is he going at to deliver this child and to transport this frog lady and their eggs? Spoiler alert, if you guys haven't seen last 2 episodes, and what he's doing, right? And so I'm curious to see where they're headed to do this, to go, because I'm watching it with my kids too, and my wife, and we're all watching it, and we're all addicted to this Mandalorian story because we're trying to see where this leads up to. Because he doesn't seem like a bad person, considering as a Mandalorian, right? He seems like a noble kind of guy who's following a certain code that the Mandalorians follow. This is the way. I mean, my kids are now saying that around the house. This is the way, right? But I liked it. I think there's an interesting story to it. Because he's going to different territories now, and we'll see what happens.
Nice. Yeah, no, I agree. I think the ice planet was interesting when you see the ice planet that they land on.
Yeah.
Avoiding the New Republic, not the Rebel Alliance any longer, the New Republic.
Yeah.
First thought was, okay, is it Ilium or is it Hoth? Right? Because snow planets, and those are two of the known snow planets that kind of exist out there.
Right.
Obviously, it was a totally different, but yeah, the whole spider scene, the spider den, was pretty interesting. Primarily because those spiders had shown up in the animated series Rebels as well. That was the first time visually seeing it. But what was even more interesting about it was that, and I just learned about this yesterday, that the spiders used were part of original concept art. Back in the day when they were sort of coming together with Empire Strikes Back, that particular spider was concept art on Dagobah, potentially of Luke, when he lands on Dagobah looking for Yoda, would run into the spider or see the spider. And obviously it never materialized. But it's funny to see that Dave Filoni, who was, by the way, one of the X-Wing pilots as well, which was cool. He once again did that. He continues to bring out, he and Jon Favreau continue to bring up things from the past that may not have ever been there, and really introducing them into today's canon. So that was pretty cool. Those spiders were pretty interesting just to see run around. I loved the child eating one of them was funny. It was like candy. I was so excited.
Well, it was funny though. It was weird. I thought it was, they were taking a page from Aliens at first. That's what
it looked like. I agree.
Yeah, right. It's like, what?
Yeah, it seemed familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think, Glenn? What was sort of the interesting point? I mean, you've seen the episodes as well. What's been kind of your thought on this latest one?
I don't know, like you said, I was like interested in the ice planet a lot, like wanting to get more about that. But kind of go away from the specifics. Getting like this feeling of like Kung Fu TV series. Remember Kung Fu back in the 80s?
Yep.
Where, like, he's wandering he goes to one place and, he's trying to find an answer, and he goes to another place. It's just getting this really cool feel. It's like, that's why these guys should be in control of Star Wars. It's the story that you're getting. You're like Mike said, it's like, you have him and his kids are getting involved in it, and it's cool to see this journey that he's having. Like you said, he started out, you didn't know what he was about in the beginning, right? You didn't know, that he's a bounty hunter, but he's kind of has that chaotic neutral, if you want to go into like to the old Dungeons and Dragons type thing. And you're seeing, like, even though every time he goes to a new place, you're seeing him almost evolve into something different. You don't really know at this point, you don't really know a lot about him, but you're learning more about who he is as a person, like his character and everything. And I just love the story. I mean, I just love how they're actually developing it. But it just seems like that he goes one area, like an old Western Kung Fu type feeling of he goes, he helps somebody here, and then you see, it always seems like the closing is him on a ship leaving. And it just seems like this thing, like, like I said, it's kind of a throwback to things that we grew up with, like I said, like the Incredible. Remember, Hulk back then with the TV series? It's like, you go from place to place, you help somebody, and helps their journey along, and it's like
the A-Team.
Yeah. Okay, and instead of they have the what do you call it, the Razor Crest instead of the big black van. But yeah, I've really just enjoyed the second season as well. It's like you have these high hopes for it because everybody loved season 1, but now the continuation to season 2 is it's been more of the same, and it's just, again, it's been a good story so far. It's like they're not really, you kind of forget that they're trying to find who to bring Baby Yoda or the child, the child to, because it's not You call it Baby Yoda because Yoda's a name, so it's not.
Yeah.
Or at least that's.
They never reference it as Baby Yoda, but everybody else does. Yes.
I know. Yeah.
Almost like,
Exactly. We always say it that way, and it's like you kind of forget. It's like, oh yeah, this is what they're trying to do, but it's like
Right.
you're caught up in the journey. You're not like wanting them to rush to find Boba Fett or whatever. You're kind of like you forget that well, maybe not forget that that's what they're doing, but they're just doing a good job and like making each episode relevant. Like it's a good story, and again, it's part of his journey to trying to find a family for this child, the child. But yeah, no, I mean, I've enjoyed the season so far. It's just been great.
So we're only 2 episodes in, and obviously it's only an 8-episode season. So, you're already a quarter of the way through, right? At this point. What's your thoughts about, so what's next, right? Right now he's taking the frog lady and her babies, minus probably about 5 or 6 of them, since the child seems to find them as a snack, which is funny. It's just funny to watch. He's like really trying to grab it. And Mando keeps going, no, don't do that.
It's not food.
I love when he catches him one time when they crash, looks at him and goes, how many of those did you eat? Just kind of smiles. Doesn't say anything. But obviously, next step, they're going to land on whatever planet they're trying to get to. So I suspect they'll end up looking for another Mandalorian. So it'll be interesting to see what planet it will look like. To your point, right? He's going from, that's always been each episode in season 1. It's the same thing. It's sort of that next day, right? Or that next stop, so to speak, right. To your point, right? So that's how this one seems to be progressing as well. I will say one thing that I think was interesting, I don't know if it was relevant at all, and I still don't, other than for humor, was to start the episode, he's riding back on the speeder bike, and you see these 4 characters basically trying to line up a rope to knock him off, and it's just junkers, right? Trying to take whatever they can from him. There's no relevance whatsoever to that part. So to me, it's like, from an episode standpoint, it just seemed like out of place. I don't understand. Like, it didn't set up anything per se, other than the humor of the little guy trying to kill the child. He gives him the backpack, and then as he runs off with the backpack, he controls it and launches him in the sky and kills him, which is funny. But there's no relevance. Like, he didn't learn anything new. There was nothing, no new info gained. No, that was just sort of a stop along the way. So I'd say, the episode was great, but that one kind of throws me. It's like, it's just humor, but there's no real value behind it, I guess, is what was kind of throwing me. What's that?
Is that a bad thing?
Well, it's not a bad thing, but when you start to think about, when you start to sit back and think about the episodes, you try to identify what's the importance, because each one kind of sets a paves a way for something else down the road.
It could set up something down the road, though.
Yeah,
it could. That's why I was curious. Like, immediately, it had no value, right? But yes, it could be something that comes back to get him. If he goes back to Tatooine, I doubt he will. Well, he might, because Boba Fett's there, so we could eventually tie back in there. But yeah, I just found that kind of, it's a funny scene, but it just didn't seem very relevant in the big scheme of things. But like the Krayt Dragon in season 1 or episode 1 of this last season was fantastic. By the way, I mean that you've never seen the Krayt Dragon before. Other than the bones of one, now that you go back and look in Star Wars, the original Star Wars movie, and 3PO and R2-D2 are running through the desert, you see bones of what look like would be the Krayt Dragon.
Right.
Scale-wise, it looks much smaller, obviously, than what they did in this latest rendition. But that's one thing of importance is people are wondering how could Boba Fett still be alive. I think they made the comment early on, saying that the Krayt Dragon's in the Sarlacc pit. He goes, well, I think, why isn't a Sarlacc there? Well, some things, Sarlacc no longer exists. Like, basically, the Krayt Dragon came in and killed it, and probably when its efforts to kill this Sarlacc probably freed Boba Fett at that point in time.
Awesome,
No, I'm interested to see, I'm curious to see how it goes. We still haven't seen anything about the Moff from the end of season 1 with the Darksaber, right? They haven't called it the Darksaber, but everybody who's kind of watched any of the Clone Wars or the Rebels know full well that the Darksaber is the Mandalorian lightsaber for the one Mandalorian who ever became a Jedi.
Right.
That was his lightsaber in a sense. So I'm curious to see what happens there. And then, of course, we know there's going to be other guest stars that'll show up down the road because they've already announced them over time. So I'll be curious to see how that goes. But anything you're looking forward to, like what you've read about or heard, or where you'd like to see characters go? I mean, I'm sure everybody wants to know what the planet is that the species Yoda grew up on. I mean, that's obviously the end game here, to find out that. But what else you guys think about the potential upcoming or anything you think we might
can't think of anything. I'm just enjoying the moment. With the kids, right? Just seeing what it comes out of.
Fucking boring.
Wow.
Well, no.
Enjoying the moment. Yeah, okay, that's great. For those of us though who are deep in the lore, we want to think down the road. Come on.
Okay.
So you're asking for opinion, and all of a sudden you want to shoot it down.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm executing. That's why.
Really,
there you go. I guess you're executing your rights. I guess.
You won't have an opinion if it's what I want you to have. No, for me, I think because these guys are so into Star Wars, Favreau and Filoni, is that, like you said, JD, that there's all these little tie-ins, and that I don't know them all, and it's kind of cool that because I know that you have that background that bringing things up, or then also reading things online or seeing some things on YouTube, other people talking about it. And yeah, there are people who are a lot more knowledgeable than Star Wars than I am, or who are really, really into it. But hearing those tie-ins, and I think that's the thing, like that the new sequels really missed, was properly tying into the fabric of the previous 6 movies. You didn't have that tie-in. It seemed like they were, even though the characters were there, it felt independent from the first 6. You never felt like there was that connection between them. And with this, you feel more of a connection with the Star Wars universe, I think. And what I want to see is kind of how things progress. Like, yeah, there's questions about, the species that Yoda is, and are they all Force wielders? Do they all have, are they all in tune with the Force? Apparently, yeah. I mean, 2 for 2 so far.
Yeah.
And we also know that Yoda lived how many, almost 1,000 years.
900 years. Yep. Almost
900. Yeah. So what type of species are they? I mean, how? I really want to see where they're from. I mean, I know that you said aside from that, but I think finding out where the child came from, that what species they are is just like the overriding thing, because there's so many questions about who they are, how long they live, how they develop, what do they have, why did we only see 2 of them? So,
actually, you saw a third one. I don't know if you remember, but in The Phantom Menace, on the Jedi Council was yet another one of Yoda's species, a female version.
So, yeah, I guess
look back on that one. I have to look back.
I don't remember seeing it, but I do.
Go back and just look. Phantom Menace. That's the only one you need to look at, because she disappears after that. I don't know what the hell happened to her, but assume she went to war and died somewhere in the clone battles and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. You don't see much of the species. I agree with you. I mean, he was only 100 years old.
It's like, do they actually have like a civilization, or a city, or someplace where they actually live, or is it something else? I wonder if there's something else.
Created like the way Anakin was created.
Something to that effect. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that specifically, but I think that there's a question of, what really are they?
Yeah, because if you look at it, right? Because I mean, if we look at how Anakin was born, right? He was not fathered or anything like that. He was just created in his mother, right? So maybe that's how they are. As a species, they grew up individually, right? They just developed maybe the midichlorians forms them somewhere, somehow, or something like that, and just be created. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they develop that. I'm very curious to see about that, where that leads up to. Because, yeah, right. If there is only 3 that we've seen so far, then it's like in the last X amount of years, right?
There could be 100, or whatever. But I just don't think it's like, 1 million of them or whatever. I don't think it's like, I think it might be like a small tribe or something to that effect. That's like, I don't have an expectation of what it is, which is the cool part. So I can't be off. I just want to really see, how they explain that species. I think it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I think to your point, right? I don't think they're going to be a vast civilization of any kind. I'd be surprised if that were the case. I definitely see them being more of nomadic, right? So smaller groups probably do exist from a single planet, most likely in the outer rim out of the known galaxy that they exist in today. So it's probably why you don't hear much about them, that people don't even seem to know anything about them. It's because they probably just outside the normal planetary, galaxy and whatnot that they have. So I wouldn't be surprised there. I mean, they brought into your point, right? Dave Filoni and them have brought in some random characters like Cobb Vanth, who was the one wearing Boba Fett's armor. Yeah. He's a minor character that was in a book called Aftermath, which is basically a more recent book that they did that takes place after the destruction of the second Death Star. So he was a minor character in that, and yet they pulled him into this episode as sort of a bigger character. So that was pretty cool. And dude, I love the actor. He's fantastic. Always loved him. Yeah, any movie he's in, any show he's in, it's just his mannerisms, the way he talks. It's just funny. He does such a great job.
Especially, I love him in San Clarita Diet.
Which one?
San Clarita Diet. It's a TV series.
Oh yeah.
I didn't watch one of those, but I didn't watch all of them. So yeah, I'm trying.
Oh my god, this character there is freaking hilarious. Love it.
But I think what will be interesting over the season is we're going to see more Mandalorians, right? We'll probably see more Mandalorians. We're going to see Ahsoka Tano, who is a former Jedi, who at the end of Rebels disappears looking for yet another Jedi who saved sort of the galaxy and took off in a different direction. She was looking for him. But Ahsoka Tano was the, in case you don't know, was the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. So before he turned, she was his apprentice. When he first started training. So, but yeah, she'll be in there, and Rosario Dawson's supposed to be playing Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah.
So that should be interesting. But I'm each week I'm always looking for what new things did they throw in there. What little tidbit did they kind of drop in that you got to kind of pay attention to. They bring in characters all the time. They bring in just actors who people love in different locations just get thrown in there. So I'm excited, man. It's a great season so far. I'm bummed that last episode was 37 minutes of time, which was super short, whereas the first episode was more like 54, which is kind of, last season, that was my biggest gripe, is a lot of times they did a lot of short episodes, like 35, 40 minutes, which isn't horrible, but when you're so engrossed in this, it sucks when it stops. So that's all. Then you can't solve that. They can make it 2 hours, I'd probably still be pissed. God, it's like watching Avengers Infinity War. You knew the ending was going to come at some point. He does the snap, and then he disappears, and then suddenly it goes out, and you're like, wait, what's going to happen next? And you knew they were making a second part to it, but it didn't matter. It's like, even after almost 3 hours, you're like, dude, this sucks. Why are we stopping? We need to know more. So it is what it is. But no, it's a great season, man. I'm looking forward to it.